Hello, Esme. It's me again, and I'm going to continue with The Last Polar Bears by Harry Horse. Let's try and finish this one. The Last Polar Bears by Harry Horse, continuing on Thursday the 24th of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, one of my gloves is missing, so writing this is hard as I have to keep stopping to warm my hand. More trouble last night. A group of wolves arrived at my door past midnight and demanded to come in and see if we had any dried meat hidden away. I told them to go to bed, but I know that they went down to Grogman's and bought more old sock. They sang all night, and I don't think I slept a wink. This morning, I got out the map and tried to work out a new route up to Great Bear Ridge. Wolf Point is too steep for Roo to pull the trolley up. The narrow valley is too narrow, and Windy Corner is too windy. I found a route called the Gentle Slopes and decided that sounded most suitable. In the afternoon, we went to see my new friend Jackson, the snow poet. Jackson makes the most fantastic snow sculptures I've ever seen. At the moment, he is working on a giant moose made entirely from snow and nothing else. When I arrived, he was working on the antlers. Jackson has been here for a long time. He lives very simply, and I often wonder how he manages it all. Nobody pays him to make the snow sculptures. Jackson told me that the snow had begun to melt at Blue Whale Bay. He said that he had been there on Monday, and the sculpture of an albatross he made the week before had melted into the sea. Before I left, he gave me one of his snow poems as a present. It was printed on a block of ice. Jackson has written hundreds of poems about the snow, but this one I found very sad. It went, "Oh, snow, 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 when you melt, where do you go? I do not knows where melted snow goes." I gave him 2 dried fish and a tin of toffees. Then we said goodbye and went home. I cooked tonight. Tell your mother I forgot to take my books back to the library, and could she do it, please? It is snowing. The wolves are very quiet tonight. Sweet dreams, child. Your grandfather. Friday the 25th of October, Walrus Bay. My dear child, very restless tonight. Roo will not sleep in her basket and keeps getting into my bed in the middle of the night. I wouldn't mind so much if she didn't fidget and poke me with her paws. Got up at 5 o'clock and made some tea whilst Roo slept on in comfort. This morning, went down to the mailing station to see if any letters had arrived for me. Got a letter from your Uncle Freddie asking for his golf trolley back. I'm still using the trolley to carry all our equipment, so he can't have it back yet. Sent him a telegram. Trolley accidentally eaten by wolves. Stopped off at the freezer centre and bought a jar of toffees to keep my strength up. Of late, I have found I've been getting far too tired. It must be the cold. Ate the toffees and felt refreshed. When I got back, it was 11 o'clock and Roo was still in bed. How can I head up expedition when my lead dog won't get up in the morning? This afternoon, there was an avalanche and a lot of snow fell from Wolf Point down into the valley. It is too dangerous to attempt to get up to Bear Ridge at the moment. The snow is melting more every day, and this was the 3rd avalanche this week. As I write this letter to you, Roo is cooking the dinner. The wolves have just gone past my window, and one of them threw a snowball. The stove is throwing out a cheerful light, and we are warm and safe. Do not worry about us, child. Although Roo and I have never been on an expedition before, we know what we are doing. Tell your mother that I am eating 3 times a day and always wear my scarf outside. I'm afraid I shall have to stop now, child, as Roo says dinner is ready. Your grandfather. Saturday, the 26th of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, how the wind howled last night. I thought it would blow the roof off our cabin. I did not sleep well. Melted some snow and made a pot of tea. It is very cold today, and I fear that I am running out of time. I need to get up to Bear Ridge soon. After breakfast, I decided to pay Jackson a visit to see how he was getting along with his snow moose sculpture. He was not very happy when I found him. The snow moose had melted. It looked more like a moose than a moose. Only the antlers remained, and they were melting too. I gave Jackson some oranges and a teapot to cheer him up, but as I made my way back down the hill, I'm sure I heard him weeping. After a lunch of smoked cheese, I took Rue to practice dragging the trolley in preparation for our expedition. I played a little golf to keep my spirits up. I find that if I hit a good shot in the direction we are walking, the distance we walk to find my golf ball distracts us from noticing how far we have walked. I had to paint the balls red so that they would show up against the snow. I've only got 3 golf clubs with me, a driver for those long shots across the snow valleys, a 5-iron for those medium shots across the crevasses, and my putter for those delicate shots across the ice. Rue does not like me playing golf. She does not watch me hit the ball, and neither does she help me find it. I just played a particularly difficult shot over a small glacier. It was only 30 meters high, which was quite small for a glacier, when she decided she wanted to go home. She took off down the hill, dragging my trolley behind her, and managed to tip it over. Golf balls, tent pegs, tins of food, my driver, and my beloved putter all came spilling out of the golf bag and shot down a very deep ravine. They are lost forever. Perhaps 1,000 years from now, they'll be found frozen solid into the ice, and scientists will argue over what they are. I am very angry with Rue, and I have not spoken to her all evening. Wind only howling a little, no sign of the wolves. My love to your mother, your grandfather. Monday, the 28th of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, I haven't been able to write to you for a few days as we've had a terrible snowstorm. It lasted for 2 days, and I have been cooped up in here with Rue, unable to get out. I read to her from a book called David Copperfield, but she said it had no pictures of rabbits in it, so it was of no interest to her. She spent most of the time staring out of the window, though there was nothing to see, only the whirling snow. We ran very short on fuel during the storm, so I had to burn some of our possessions to keep warm. I burnt 2 chairs, 2 legs off the table, and Rue's basket. If the blizzard hadn't stopped, I would have started on the floorboards. Rue was very upset about her basket. She said she was going to keep things in it. I said it was a pity she hadn't slept in it. In the end, I had to tell her the story of the ice cream on Bear Ridge to cheer her up. Once upon a time, I told her, the snow was so pure and clean that it tasted better than the finest ice cream money could buy. But as the air got dirtier from all the chemicals and fumes, the snow lost its taste. The last of the world's ice cream lies up on Bear Ridge, piles of it. And that's why we are going up to Bear Ridge to get ice cream for Rue. Rue loves to hear this story, though she has heard it many times, and I must admit that I have added bits, the fabulous chocolate mint chip, for instance, that can only be found in the shade, or the delicious strawberry split found only at sunset. These are my own inventions. Rue felt much better after this, and seemed keen to get up to Bear Ridge as soon as possible to find the ice cream. Dug our way out this afternoon and went to Walrus to get some provisions. Spent a long time searching for the shops as everything lay buried deep beneath the snow. Eventually found the mailing station after Rue fell down the chimney. Must have walked right across the roof. Rue wasn't hurt. However, she is now a black dog rather than a yellow one. Everyone in the mailing station was much amused by this, and someone even called her the Father Christmas dog, which got even more laughter. Rue went and lay beneath the counter and wouldn't come out. I bought potatoes, porridge, oats, dried fish, tent pegs, and new Wellingtons, and then discovered that the mailing station and the clerk had a parcel for me. Your father had sent me my 1 iron, which, in my haste to pack, I had forgotten. I was extremely cheered by this and bought Rue a yellow ball, a scarf with flowers on it, and a packet of roasted peanuts as a celebration. My one iron is my favourite golf club. It is not only good for long shots and putting, but is also an excellent ice pick and walking stick rolled into one. I am sure that with my one iron, I will now definitely make it to Bear Ridge and find the polar bears. We walked past Grogman's on our way home, and I'm afraid it rather ruined our good cheer. There were several wolves hanging out around outside drinking old sock, and as we went past, they sang a very rude song about us. It went something a bit like this, but I've taken the rudest bits out, as your mother wouldn't like it. There was an old man and a little dog, yo ho ho, and a bottle of sock. He was too mean to give us grog, yo ho ho, and a bottle of sock. A poor brave wolf went to his door, yo ho ho, and a bottle of sock. The old man booted him to the floor, yo ho ho, and a bottle of sock. This is, of course, complete nonsense. I have never booted anything to the floor, let alone a wolf. Snowballs were then thrown at us, but I ordered Rue to ignore them, and we got home without further incident. A fine meal of roast potatoes this evening. Rue did not eat much. I am sure that she has her own food hidden away somewhere in here. She is very careful with her money, and although I only give her 5 pence a week, which I think is plenty enough for a small dog, I am certain that she has more money than I do, and possibly more food. Wolves got back very late from Grogman's and sang another 16 verses of the song on my roof. Must go to sleep now. Very tired. Sleep well, child. Your grandfather. Tuesday, the 29th of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, woken this morning by wolves in my cabin. They had one of my pillowcases and they wanted to trade it for some of my dried fish. After realizing that I was not going to be bullied into parting with any of our provisions, they stole 2 gramophone records and a pair of braces and fled. What use these will be to them I have no idea, for they have no record player and no trousers to hold up. Later on, Rue and I went to look for driftwood at Blue Whale Bay. Whilst we were gathering wood on the beach, some seagulls fell out of the sky, frozen solid. I packed them side by side like a row of sardines into my golf bag and took them home. I laid them by the stove, and a couple of hours later they had thawed out and come back to life. They were confused at first and flew around my cabin, knocking over books and smashing plates and trying to fly through windows to get outside. Eventually they calmed down, sat in a huddle on the floor, and began to preen themselves. After they had thoroughly rearranged their feathers, they became hungry and waddled about the cabin, looking for food. They were very hungry. They found the dried fish and ate the lot. They didn't like the porridge oats, so they left that, but they finished off the rest of the potatoes and the beans. They found Rue's roasted peanuts, fought over them, and then polished them off. One even tried to eat the packet. So now, as I write this to you, they are sleeping at last. Rue has just made some porridge, and I think after we have eaten, we shall have an early night. We have no choice, really, as one of the seagulls has broken my lantern, and it is getting far too dark to see. Good night, child. Your grandfather. Wednesday, the 30th of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, the seagulls went on their way this morning. They left behind a terrible mess. Broken plates and dishes strewn across the floor, and everything covered in white feathers and bird poo. Rue found the whole incident most distressing, and said that I should have left them where I'd found them. We spent the morning tidying up after them. I can always tell when Rue is in a bad mood because she constantly follows me with her broom and asks me to move. No matter where I went, that was where she wanted to sweep next. She followed me all around the cabin, pushing a big pile of feathers and broken plates around her with her broom. She wasn't just picking it up, She was just pushing it from one side of the room to the other. I decided to get out my 1-iron and go golfing along the snow fairway. It is a difficult course to play. There are 2 crevasses on each side of the course, and if you hit your ball into them, it is lost forever. At the end of the snow fairway, there is a red flag that marks where the hole is. You have to get your ball into the hole in as few strokes as possible. Unfortunately, there is nobody I can play golf with here. Rue does not like golf, and Jackson does not see the point of whacking a ball about in the snow. So I play on my own. My first shot went in the sea. My second went down one of the crevasses. As I am running low on golf balls, I decided to play just one last ball before I packed it in. I took my aim at the red flag, kept my eye on the ball, and gave it a mighty thwack with the 1-iron. The ball rose high into the blue sky, hung still for a moment, as if deciding what to do next, and then fell in a graceful arc out of sight and beyond the crevasses. It was a magnificent shot, and I set off after it immediately to play the next. I went carefully past the crevasses, because if you fall down, you're a goner. Then, in the distance, I spied a small black shape lying in the snow. As I got closer, I realized that it was a little penguin, unconscious but still alive. Beside it lay my golf ball, which I had hit that magnificent shot with. I wrapped the penguin in my coat, zipped it up in my golf bag, and set off back to the cabin as quickly as I could. I laid it by the stove in a cardboard box. I feel very guilty about the affair and pray that it gets better. Rue and I had an argument when we went down to Woolworths to buy some more food. She said, why didn't I invite the whole of the Arctic into our home and be done with it? We could fill the place with sea lions, Arctic foxes, and seabirds, she said, and we could sleep outside. I had to tell her to be a little more caring for her fellow animals. She said they didn't care for her, so she wasn't going to care for them. Penguin still unconscious. Tell your mother that I am well. I have thrown away the pills Dr. Strangler gave me and feel better without them. A full moon tonight and many stars. The stars seem to shine brighter here in the Arctic. Jackson says it is because the air is cleaner. You could see all the way across the valley, right up to Bear Ridge. It was like daylight, only more blue. The wolves howled all night, a melancholy sound, lonelier than anything I have ever heard in my life. Your grandfather. Friday the 32nd of October, Walrus Bay. Dear child, hip hip hurrah and 3 cheers. The little penguin has woken up. It has a slight bump on its head, but apart from that, it is perfectly well. It ate 6 dried fish for breakfast and went back to sleep. Went outside to get wood for the stove, and it struck me that something was wrong. At first, I could not make up my mind what was wrong, but then I noticed the sky. One half of it was a deep blue, and the other was a bright yellow. But even stranger than that was the sun and the moon. They were side by side. The sun had risen, as it always does, but the moon hadn't gone where it normally goes during the day. It had stayed. I rushed back into the cabin, and then I noticed the calendar. It said that today was the 32nd of October, which can't be right as October only has 31 days, and today should be the 1st of November. I told Rue, and she said that she couldn't care less about how many days there were supposed to be in October. Every day was the same to her, and days shouldn't have numbers attached to them anyway. Something very strange is happening, though, despite what Rue says. I think we should set off as soon as possible for Bear Ridge before it gets any stranger. I started to pack immediately. I sent Rue down to the mailing station with a list of all the things we needed. She came back an hour later and said most of the food had gone. It seems as if everyone is leaving. I cannot decide what to do with the penguin. I feel responsible for him, but he does eat an awful lot of food. I cannot leave him here though. I shall take him with us until we find a penguin colony for him to join. Early night tonight. The wolves are very quiet. Tomorrow, come what may, we will head for Bear Ridge. Do not worry about us, child. We will be careful. I have my one iron, and I have Rue. Sweet dreams, your grandfather. Saturday, the 33rd of October, halfway up the gentle slopes. Dear child, after harnessing Rue up to the trolley, packed to the brim with food, tent, sleeping bags, the portable stove, and pots and pans, I closed the door to my cabin and we set off at once towards the gentle slopes. I did not look back in case I changed my mind. We met the wolves on the way up to the slopes. I told them they could have my cabin and whatever else was left behind, but they shook their heads and said they were going north. One of them said something about the call of the wild. I found this as strange as the sky, which this morning was a pale green, and I wondered what had happened to bring about such a change in them. For weeks they had lain around in their shack drinking old sock, and now, suddenly, they were making the difficult journey north. They ran across the snow towards Wolf Point, and then I lost sight of them. They seemed different. More like they must have been before the mailing station came. Wolves. Further up, we met Jackson at work on a giant walrus. I told him we were leaving for Bear Ridge. I gave him a few letters to post for us, thanked him, and we set off again. By lunchtime, we had reached the gentle slopes and we started to climb. Once I looked back and saw the cabin, a tiny speck in the distance, and it brought a lump to my throat. Rue was pulling the trolley with great enthusiasm, no doubt driven along by the thought of ice cream. And so by team time, we were halfway up to the top. We stopped and pitched the tent, crawled inside, and lit the stove. After a large meal, we got into our sleeping bags. Penguin didn't, as he is used to sleeping without one. By tomorrow, we shall have reached the top. Very sleepy, your grandfather. Sunday, the 34th of October, further up the gentle slopes. Dearest child, a terrible day. Whilst we were taking the tent pegs out, a large gust of wind blew the tent away. We watched it float over Blue Whale Bay. Fortunately, I had taken sleeping bags out earlier, or else it would have been a complete disaster. We carried on up the gentle slopes. The wind started to blow harder. I tied us all to a piece of rope so that none of us would blow away. We made slow progress. At times, Bear Ridge seemed to get closer and closer, but just as I thought we would reach it, it would get further away again. It must be like those mirages you get in the desert. The sky changed from lilac to a deep crimson, and it started to snow. We stopped and made an igloo, cutting out blocks of snow with my one iron to make the walls. The wind grew more fierce, and we had just finished the igloo when the storm hit. It blew the trolley up into the air, taking Rue with it. I only just managed to catch one of the wheels with my golf club and pull her back down. I grabbed her in my arms, undid the harness, and the trolley flew off down the mountain. Tonight, we went through what we had left inside the igloo. We still have the stove, so we can cook. But we have very little food left. Just 5 fish and some porridge. That's all. One sleeping bag. Everything else was in the trolley. Very despondent tonight. I can hear the storm outside. Rue is wrapped up in the sleeping bag. Penguin is asleep by my legs. When the storm is over, we will walk up to Bear Ridge and everything will be fine. I miss the wolves. Your grandfather. Monday, the 35th of October. Igloo. Dear child, the storm has not stopped. Poked our noses out to have a look and nearly had them blown away. The sky was as black as coal and the wind was moaning in a horrible way. Stuck in the igloo all day. Played I Spy with Rue to keep her spirits up. But there were not many things in the igloo, so the game was very short. Shared out 2 of the fish and a little of the porridge between the 3 of us. The situation is grim. Child, you know that I am old, don't you? That is one of the reasons why I went away. I have to see the polar bears before it is too late. The snow caps are melting. The polar bears have nowhere else to go. This is the last place on earth for them. When I have seen them, we shall come back. Don't worry, child. We know what we're doing. With love, your grandfather. Tuesday the 36th of October. Igloo. Dear child, the storm has not stopped. We now have only 3 fish left and a little porridge. I read Rue the last chapter of David Copperfield, and then we burnt it. How I long to get up and stretch my legs. But I know that if we went out in this storm, we would be lost forever. Too cold to write any more. Perhaps tomorrow the storm will stop and we shall finish our journey. Tell your mother that all is well. I don't want her to worry. Your grandfather. Wednesday the 37th of October. Igloo. Dear child, we now have only 1 fish left. Your grandfather. Thursday the 38th of October. Igloo. Dear child, thank heaven for Rue. This evening she produced a tin of macaroni cheese, which she said she'd been saving for a special occasion. We all sat round the little stove and watched it cook. It was the best thing I have ever eaten. Storm still going as strong as ever. All 3 of us in a sleeping bag to keep warm. Bless you, child. Your grandfather. Friday the 39th of October. Igloo. Dear child, very weak, so this letter will be very short. We have no food left. The storm has stopped. In the wind, I am sure that I hear voices. I thought I heard the wolves howling. The 3 of us huddled together. Child, do not worry. I know the polar bears will find us. I feel more tired than I have ever felt in my life, and I shall dream of the polar bears tonight. Rue says she will dream about ice cream. Tell your mother that I will be going home soon. Your grandfather. Saturday, the 40th of October. Dear child, the storm suddenly stopped and we crawled out of the igloo. I only took my 1 iron and a few golf balls with me. The sky wasn't purple or green, it was just blue. We walked the last bit up to Bear Ridge, under the warm sun. Penguin walked beside me while Rue ran ahead, as dogs always do. At last, we reached the top. Here I am, child, on Great Bear Ridge, and it's like I dreamt it would be, only better. The wolves are here, and I am happy to see them. The whales are here too, swimming amongst the icebergs, and there are penguins and seals. But most of all, the polar bears are here. I can see them with their cubs playing in the snow. I have not spoken to them yet, but I will. Sleep tight, my child. This is a beautiful world, and it goes on forever. I'm tired now and must stop writing. Tell your mother that I love her. Shushru, the polar bears are here. Hushru, in the morning we will search for ice cream for you. Ice cream for Roo. Sunday, the 1st of November. I have seen the polar bears. I have lived the dream that Roo and I shared. It was a beautiful place, Great Bear Ridge. And now that I have seen this, I will be coming home to you, dear child. Tell your mother that I love her, and I love you too. And I will see you soon and share all of these stories with you. Your grandfather. That was The Last Polar Bears by Harry Horse. It's quite a long session, that one, but now we're finished with The Last Polar Bears. I hope you've enjoyed it and I can finally get back in the warm and out of this snow. Wonderful news, as I'm getting pretty chilly. Good night.